Hi guys, glory to Jesus Christ. Let's talk about frustrating things you encounter in prison ministry. This is episode number whatever, occasionally crazy stuff happens and I make videos about it because sometimes you just need to, especially if you're in prison ministry, you need to know that you're not alone and that there are crazy things that happen to other people too. So, last week, we do the men for an hour. Then the men leave, the women come in, we do the women for an hour. I usually leave after the men's group because I have to go get my husband from the train station because he does not have a car. So especially during the wintertime, I don't like him to have to walk 2 miles home, in the snow. So I left, and I got an email from my priest the following morning saying, it was on an unrelated topic, but he mentioned, remind me to tell you what happened after you left. And I said, okay. So the following night, he told me that one of our volunteers, she's Roman Catholic, she's one of the longest standing, most experienced people, she's an amazing woman, love her, had been or has been suspended. She is no longer allowed to come in to the prison until, or I should say if, she is able to, I guess, get her status restored by the volunteer coordinator. I said, why? What did she do? And I guess she had made a deposit to an inmate's commissary account. It's kind of like a reverse ATM. You go into the lobby of this jail, there's this machine, and if you know an inmate's name and their register number, you can electronically credit their account so they can do things like buy snacks from the commissary, they can use the phone, etc., etc. So this ministry group, which has been doing this for decades, sometimes puts a little money on an inmate's account if they need it for a good reason. And I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money, but there's sometimes when you have somebody who is about to be released and, for example, they need to pay a fine to get their driver's license restored to them, for example. Or they need to buy bus passes to go to the job center, whatever. I don't even know because I'm not really involved in the whole money end of it. But this has been going on for decades. Okay, you gotta understand that this ministry initiative, several decades old, and our most experienced volunteers are on first-name basis with several of our judges in this county. We're not just randoms that walked in off the street one day and said, hey, we want to talk to the inmates about God. No. So, she got yanked out of the women's meeting and berated by the guards because apparently they found out that she had put some money on some inmate's account. I don't even know which inmate. And they said that she was in violation of one of the rules for volunteers, which is thou shalt not establish a relationship with an inmate. What the heck does that mean? Well, whoever it was that was in charge on that day got up on the wrong side of the bed and decided, I'm going to apply that ruling to this because I'm having a bad day, so let me exert power. Right? Now, here's my problem with this. And I'm not just making the video because of this one incident. It's kind of a cumulative thing that this incident really crystallized for me. And I went, that's what's been driving me nuts. See, the volunteer handbook can be kind of vague. There are a lot of these commandments that are written in very open language. They're open to interpretation, which means that they're enforced unpredictably. And the same thing happens to the inmates. Now, let me say something here. If you are a prison guard, you're watching my videos, God bless you. I am not casting aspersions on prison guards. Okay. If I were a prison guard, I think I would feel very frustrated when volunteers came in for an hour or 2 or 3 every week and then, started to have opinions about what everyone else was doing wrong, telling the guards how they should do their job. I'm not doing that at all. I fully understand that the guards see the inmates and interact with the inmates and in a certain sense know the inmates more than I do. I get that. My problem is the inconsistency. It's the same thing like with kids. Rules aren't the problem. It's when the parents reinforce them unpredictably. Okay. Same thing in jail. What does establishing a relationship mean? Does it mean a romantic relationship? Does it mean a spiritual mentorship relationship? Does it mean cash money? I mean, actually, you can't have cash in prison, but does it mean money? What does it mean? It's not defined. Now, let me give you another example of why this is so inconsistent. Okay? We have a bunch of regulations about what you can wear and what you can't wear. Makes sense, right? Several times now, I have been unintentionally in violation of the dress code. Now, twice, and I think I made videos about this, twice it was my own stupidity. Okay, I had a dress on that was too short once, and I had a shirt on that was kind of, like, it wasn't technically, or it wasn't supposed to be a see-through shirt, but it was kind of too thin. So they just didn't let me go in. They turned me away, and they were very nice about it. And I was like, I am so sorry, I'm an idiot, thank you, I will not make a mistake again. But several other times, and this was in the beginning, you know, when I was still kind of new, I broke the rules without meaning to. Once I wore sandals, open-toed shoes, which you're not supposed to do. I still don't know why, but you're not supposed to wear them. And the other time was I wore a hoodie. I had the hood down, but I still had a hood, and you're not supposed to do that. Now, of course, again, makes sense, right? But my point is, I was not kicked out for that. Both times, you know, one of the guards just at the end pulled me aside and said, hey, you can't wear that again. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm sorry, I won't. And I haven't worn it again. But if I had gotten another guard who was having a bad day, who needed a power trip, who knows what would have happened? We had another person, and this was from way before I was involved in this program. There was a priest who had brought in, Catholic priest, who had brought in 2 little tea light candles for use during the Mass. And the guards confiscated it, and they threatened to arrest him and charge him with bringing contraband into a penal institution, which is a felony. You know, again, there's very little consistency, and it's extremely frustrating. And I know that if it's frustrating for me, I can't imagine what it's like for the inmates. Now, a lot of the stories that you hear from inmates are sob stories, they're crocodile tears, but a lot of them aren't. And that's another thing. I don't believe every word that comes out of just about anybody's mouth in the world. But it's also a mistake to not believe anything a person says just because they're wearing a jumpsuit that says inmate on it. You know, I've made other videos about this. We've had guards that were throwing Bibles away. They were throwing rosaries away. They were preventing people from coming to church. They were doing all kinds of shady things that they're not supposed to do because they could. And in any sphere of life, when people get power, many of them choose to abuse it. It's very, very unfortunate. So, this is a useful opportunity to just remember that in life in general, we're not in control. We can't control anything, really. So, I'm trying not to be angry about it. I don't like it. But I'm trying to get some spiritual profit here. And I feel fairly confident that the situation will be able to be resolved. But it just really grinds my gears. Case in point again. Twice now, we've had Catholic priests come in with the reserved sacrament. It's not just the wafers that the lay Eucharistic ministers bring. The priests actually have the wafers, but they also have a little tiny thing of wine like this, and they have a little thing of water. Now, the wine does not get distributed to the inmates. The priest consumes it. Okay, but it's necessary. And twice now we've had 2 different priests get turned away at the front gate because the guards searched the bag, which they're entitled to do, absolutely, no problem with that whatsoever. And they saw the wine, and they thought that we were giving booze to inmates. They didn't bother to check up on it. They didn't bother to do research. They didn't even bother to ask, what's the deal here? You know, it just, ugh. And so I was talking to my priest about this, and, you know, in the Orthodox Church, if you have the reserved sacrament of the pre-sanctified gifts, when a priest carries those, they wear this special, like, mini tabernacle, and it's supposed to never leave them at all. And it has all of the accoutrement, and it has the pre-sanctified gifts in it. And then they are moistened with water and given to the faithful. But, you know, bringing wine, even if it's this much, is a problem in a prison. And of course, in the Orthodox Church, we always partake of both species, the body and the blood. It's not either or. So there's absolutely no way to have the Eucharist without the bread and the wine. So I was talking to my priest about this. I was like, well, then what do you do? And so he had, I guess, you know, spoken to the bishop about it, and he wound up bringing, I call it holy croutons. It's the dried body and blood. It's not wet. And then he would reconstitute it with a little water. So, that's not normally how you use the pre-sanctified gifts, but in this case, you know, it was a necessity, because what else are you going to do? So, I don't have answers for this. But if you are in prison ministry, or if you're thinking about getting into it, just understand something. I wish I had understood this, but I guess maybe there isn't really a way to totally understand it until it happens to you. In life, of course, we are not in control, and in a prison, we are definitely not in control. It doesn't matter if you're being reasonable and you're being respectful. It doesn't matter, okay? If a guard is having a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. And there's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely not. So you have to roll with it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You just have to be super respectful, super subservient, super polite. Because, you know, even if they're going to walk all over you, if you get angry or defiant, you're done. You are El Dunzo. They will bury you. Because there's a lot of room for interpretation in these rules. One final example, and then I'll shut up. When you go into a prison, as a visitor, you get a hand stamp. It's yellow or sometimes a clear kind of ink with a little symbol on it, I don't know. And in order to get out of the prison, you have to put your hand under a black light. And then they'll say, okay, yeah, you're a visitor, you can leave, you're not somebody trying to get out. If you make the mistake of using the restroom after you get the stamp, but before you go back to the secure side of the facility, and you're not thinking, and you wash your hands, you may wash off the ink. So I have learned now, if that happens, I just go up to the desk guard and I say, I'm sorry, can I have another stamp? I had to pee. But a friend of mine once, for whatever reason, I don't know if the guard forgot to stamp him or if he washed it. I don't know. But we got to the door where we're supposed to go to leave the secure side, and the guard who was manning the black light couldn't find the ink. And I couldn't see it either. So the thing is, at that point, he has a choice. Does he call the front desk and ask for clarification, or does he arrest him? Now, he was having a bad day that day. And so he was hollering and screaming and yelling and you know, just essentially calling my friend a moron for having no stamp. He came this close to getting arrested. He really did. And so I just wound up standing there and being like, all right, well, I'm not leaving until he's leaving, so glory to God, we were both allowed to leave. But the point is, you got no control. So accept it, roll with it, right? Eyes on the cross, roll with it. I'm out of time, I gotta run. Thank you for watching, God bless you, see you later, bye.